All right, IoT Analytics, IoT Startups Landscape for 2024, take 0. All right, so I am traveling on the road. I don't have my studio camera. We had to set up a studio here, so somebody reached out to me, actually several people, asked me to take a look at IoT Analytics, IoT Landscape for 2024, this new report they came out with. I have not reviewed it. All I've done is bring up the LinkedIn post and I clicked on the link. I have not. I'm going to do it dry. I'm actually going to go through and show you how it is I review this kind of stuff. Like what are the steps I go through, and then so we'll just get into it. All right. So let's go ahead and take a look at this LinkedIn post. Came out like a week ago. 7 notable insights about the IoT startup landscape in 2024. So I clicked on the link, and we'll go through that in a second, but basically there were 7 key takeaways from this report. Okay, so number 1, the share of the IoT startups in APAC is increasing. So that's Asia Pacific. The share of the IoT startups is increasing there. Number 2, US-based startups top total funding share, but one China-based company leads overall. Number 3, several large investment rounds for IoT hardware startups. 4, Techstars, which I think they're based out of New York City. They remain the top IoT startup investor. Basically, Techstars is the company that's investing in IoT startups the most. Number 5, manufacturing receives the most attention from IoT startups, but smart city and energy utility focused startups are gaining traction. I'm actually going to comment later on in this video about our experience working in green energy. I think it'll be quite enlightening. I'm going to talk about, we have quite a bit of experience working in green battery manufacturing and electric in EVs. And I'm going to actually talk about that here as part of this video. And then AI takes a foothold, and analytics is the most common offering. Saying analytics is the most common offering is like saying that having an infotainment system in your car is the most common offering in car sales. Analytics means nothing in terms of a word. So I'm curious as to see what IoT Analytics says in this report here. Let me start by saying this. I don't put a lot of weight into this kind of stuff, and you'll never see me when I get selected for like IoT, or I get every year I get put on these lists for top IoT innovators and influencers and that kind of stuff. And you'll notice I don't share those posts on LinkedIn. I don't say I'm honored or anything, because the truth is I'm not honored. I think most of the lists are garbage. They're just companies trying to piggyback on, I have how many followers I have on LinkedIn. They're just trying to get me to engage with it so that my engagement gets to my followers. And I just, I don't know how someone could pick me for a top influencer if they haven't had a conversation with me or had a conversation with the people who influence. I don't even understand what influencing is. If you're a person who gives your opinion and people listen to that opinion, does that make you an influencer? I'm not so sure. I actually think people listen to the people that resonate to them. So you're not really influencing them. You're really just more of, like, I always talk about how I'm just saying the things other people think. What sets me apart is I'm saying them. I have the balls to say them. I'm not afraid of the consequences. There's no company out there that can hurt me. I'm not afraid of losing some relationship or anything like that. I feel like I owe it to the community to tell it like I see it based on my experience. IoT Analytics is one of the companies that selects me for these lists. I have had a call with their CEO. I think last year I was pretty critical on a list that they came out with, and I had a conversation with their CEO, and my feedback to their CEO was, who are the analysts who are doing these lists? Like, what are their background? Like, what are their bona fides to give them the expertise? What makes them a subject matter expert so that they can analyze a market? Specifically a market around the Internet of Things and the industrial Internet of Things. All right, so let's kind of go into this. I I don't put a lot of weight into these types of things, but there are important nuggets I get out of these types of reports. And so I want you guys to see how it is I analyze it, how I actually look at these, okay? So read IoT Analytics analyst Zeynep Kamen's latest article to learn more about these insights. So the first thing we're going to do, and the first thing I always do, it looks like this is the analyst. So let's go ahead and see what Zeynep Kamen's bona fides are. So Zeynep Kamen is based out of Hamburg, Germany. She's an analyst at IoT Analytics. She started out as an intern as a market analyst in October of 2023. She became a market analyst this year in April, and in July she came out with, this report. She was a student assistant researcher at Statista in work study. Sounds like while she was in school. She was a student assistant, and she was an audit intern, and her degree is she went to school at the University of Hamburg 20 to 23. She has a BS in economics, and she has a master's in politics, economics, and philosophy. Okay, so that doesn't necessarily rule her out as someone who could produce a good analysis of IoT startups, assuming she is working with somebody who can analyze the market for her. Okay. One of the things I want to do is take a look at this little document that they put out here. I know it's hard to read. You got to forgive me here, but I want to read the fine print over here on the side. So it says, for companies to be included in IoT Analytics, IoT startups databases, they must be founded in or after January of 2016. They have to focus on building solutions for the Internet of Things and provide part of a solution focused on at least one area of the IoT technology stacks layers. Companies can offer more than one technology. This list represents a best effort to capture the entire landscape. However, it does not claim to be exhaustive, as some startups will have inevitably been missed. This landscape, sorry, the writing's really small. This landscape shows only about 1,200 of the 3,300 companies in the IoT startup landscape and database for 2024. Source IoT Analytics Research 2024. Startup Landscape and Database 2024. We welcome republishing or images, but ask for source citation with a link to the original post and company website. So basically, if you're going to talk about this, we'll include the link to this. Basically, if you're going to talk about it, they want you to promote it, essentially. All right. So, let's go ahead and take a look. The other thing I like to do is I like to look at engagement. So when these types of things show up on LinkedIn, I try to look at engagement. So what you've got here are 269 engagements with only 21 comments. That's actually really, really low. Okay, so if you have 21 comments on 269 engagements, means that there isn't really a conversation. But the number that really stands out here is 62 reposts, and I would suspect that the vast majority of those reposts are from companies that are on this here. Okay, so that actually kind of sticks out. The fact that there's 62 reposts, that tells me that there is a concerted effort to spread this list out. That doesn't happen organically. You don't get 62 reposts on a post that only has 269 engagements and only 21 comments. So the reposting itself is a goal to get it into as many hands as possible. With 62 reposts, I would generally expect about 10 engagements per repost, which should put this around 620 plus. So I'll say almost certainly this report has fallen flat in the market. All right, this was a week ago. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the report itself. So this came out July 31, today's August 12th. So in short, there's 3,300 active IoT startups. according to the latest 83-page IoT startup landscape report and database, a steep rise over the 1,205 identified in 2021. I'm curious as to how an analyst who just came out of college could do this analysis and write this an 83-page report in just a couple of months. Yeah, I mean, Grant, I mean, here's the reality. Let's say Rick Bellotta wrote this. Like, let's say Rick Bellotta does a blog post and he's like, hey, you know, here are the companies I'm investing in. Here are the companies I've looked at. I'm listening to what Rick's got to say. Okay, I mean, because I know Rick is putting his money where his mouth is. I'm definitely going to listen to it. There are other members in the community that I know invest in companies, folks that I work closely with. I don't have permission to mention their name. Rick has never explicitly given permission, but he talks a lot on LinkedIn. He's active and publicly talks about his investments. So it's a reason I drop his name. If he was doing a post like this, I'd fucking be diving in and taking a look. I find this, I mean, it's interesting, but do I think based on what I've read so far, I'm gonna be impressed? Probably not. 7 notable insights, which I've already read off, on why this report matters. So for IoT investors and corporates, the IoT startup landscape has become quite dynamic over the last few years, with many new, interesting, innovative companies emerging around the world. There are now thousands of interesting startups to invest in or acquire. And for IoT startups, with over 3,300 IoT startups, competition is heating up. Without a notable increase in exits, differentiating an IoT startup is becoming more difficult. There's also a bunch of economic factors that are going into the exits. Because in a high inflation, the Fed has squeezed liquidity. Now what you've really got is the only real cash out there for M&A is either mergers and acquisitions or, from companies that are sitting on a lot of cash, or they got to get that cash from venture capital groups. And venture capital groups are incredibly aggressive. That market scares the shit out of a lot of companies. So say I wanted to buy one of these startups, I have money to invest, but I'm gonna basically outlay 20% of the purchase price, and I've got to go get 80% of it from other investors, and I go to a VC group. They're incredibly aggressive. I mean, there aren't many venture capital groups out there that, in my experience, are really values-based or mission-driven. I mean, many say that they are. I have come across a couple, but the very few are. I mean, for the end of the at the end of the day, they're about as making as much money as they can, as quickly as they can, right? And so if you're thinking about buying an IoT startup, I mean, this is not a good market for acquisition. I mean, we're too early into, we're about to go into a pretty significant recession. We've actually been in a recession. We've just been kind of cooking the books. And we know that. I mean, I don't need to tell you, if you work in this industry right now, your clients are paying later. They're asking for longer terms. Everyone is seeing this across the board. Clients aren't paying earlier. They're not sitting on a ton of cash. They're postponing capital investment, and it's been that way for 18 to 24 months. We've seen multiple bankruptcies in some of our clients. In fact, we're going through the second bankruptcy in the last year. Well, at least Intellic is. I won't. I'm still technically the chairman there, but won't be, only for a couple more weeks. We've seen a couple of bankruptcies in the last year in our clients. So the market's very, very tough. And if you're making the argument here that the fact that we haven't seen a lot of exits recently is an indicator that the market is becoming saturated with IoT startups, I think that is a wrong analysis. I think the economic factors play a much bigger role. I think that there's a lot of IoT tools that are currently missing in the market. I know one that's being worked on that hopefully I'll get a chance to see an alpha on here in another month. I know it's not on this list, and it's probably the most interesting startup in the market. I don't have permission to talk about it yet, like mention the name and who it is. As soon as they give me the thumbs up and let me review it, they did promise me I would be the one, I would get a chance to announce it publicly. There's another one, Flow Software, working on the Unified Analytics Framework. They have there's another name that, you know, and I'm not allowed to mention the brand name yet, but what Flow's doing is very interesting, and that is, you know, with their recent incorporation in the United States, that is technically an IoT startup. I don't even know if it's on this list. I'll take a look. And it's in analytics, so we'll see if it's there. I doubt it is. You know, I would certainly say that HiByte has to be still the most interesting and groundbreaking and innovative startup in the IoT space, specifically for manufacturing in the world. I don't think there's any real exception there at all. So, and I don't know if that's going to make it on this list. So let's go ahead and take a look. So, this increased the vibrancy. Let me see here, bro. All right. So the number of identified active IoT startups rose 2.7x between 2021 and 2024. Research for IoT Analytics 83-page IoT startup landscape report identified over 3,300 IoT startups, a steep rise over the 1,205 identified active startups in 2021. Well, part of this comes down to IoT Analytics' more sophisticated methodology to find all possible startups in 2024. This increase highlights the vibrancy of the IoT community. The IoT Startup Landscape 2024 report includes the database for which the report draws. It contains more than 60 data points for each startup. So I like that. I like that it's 60 data points. I am generally skeptical of any analysis that is judged across 10 data points or less. 10 is really kind of where you want to see. 10 is the cleanest. If you can get it into 10, 60 I would argue is too many data points, but you'd much rather see 60 than 5. Okay. Let's go ahead and just read the more details here. IoT Startup Reports offers a more detailed landscape. So basically they're trying to get you to get the report. Number one, the share of IoT startups in APAC is increasing. North America has the most IoT startups. No shit, we're the most innovative. You know, this isn't rocket science. Here's the place you're never going to see the most startups, and that's the EU. You're just not going to see it in Europe. Europe is not innovative. Listen, if you are in the European Union, let me say this, okay? You are driving off of a cliff. Like, the European Union is driving off a cliff, literally. There is next to no innovation happening in the European Union, and the innovation that is happening, and there is some that is happening, the innovation that is happening, the companies that are starting up in the EU, they have no fucking runway. I mean, they have to overcharge their clients on day one. They have absolutely no runway. I had a long conversation with one of my attorneys, one of my tax attorneys the other day, as a part of this related to me selling Intellic Integration and creating a trust, and I created this new company, and I'm doing a bunch of stuff on the back end in my own portfolio. We were having a conversation about the European Union. Now, this is one of the same tax attorneys who told me that they wouldn't represent me if I wanted to start a company in New York State. So I had planned to start an entity in New York State here in the United States, and they told me, and another one of my accountants and another one of my lawyers said we were not going to represent you, even though they can. They would not. They're not doing anything in the state of New York at all. They're also not doing anything in the state of California. Those states are moving more to like planned economies, and planned economies are the last fucking place innovation takes place. Fortunately, we still have lots of states in the United States where they're very much pro-business. The grease the wheels to get to incentivize businesses to be created, to employ people, and to innovate. And so it's not any surprise that North America has the most startups. And believe me, I'll bet you the vast majority of those startups you're seeing more in the Boston area, the Austin area, the Nashville area, than you are in Silicon Valley. All right. U.S. Meanwhile, 24% of IoT startups are in the Asia-Pacific region, up from 16% in 2021, reflecting diversification in the IoT startup landscape. While the number of IoT startups in every tracked APAC country rose, India saw the highest climb compared to 2021, from 84 to 388. And I'm actually not seeing greater growth in India, just based experientially. I've seen it flatten off. So my guess is that increase in India is almost certainly IoT Analytics didn't see these companies the first time around. If you would look, I'll bet if you look at the startup date, you know, from 2001 to, you know, any company that's 2016 to 2024 is considered an IoT startup. I'll bet if you look at the last report, between the last report and now, what they did was they found companies they didn't see before, but they didn't start then. We're actually seeing a flattening off of startups in India. US-based startups total the funding share, but a Chinese IoT startup leads overall. The top 20 IoT startups collectively received 31% of all investments. Between 16 and 24, the top 20 IoT startups received nearly $6.7 billion in funding, while 11 of the 20 top funding earners were in the US. The China-based semiconductor company Westin Computing received over $1 billion, the only company to pass the $1 billion mark. The second and third top funding earners are both from the US, Figure and Verkada. That's not a surprise. Chip shortage yields investment in chips. All right. IoT startup spotlight, Westin Computing, founded in 2016. Westin develops integrated chips and focuses on IoT connectivity and AI data processing, among other areas. Specifically for cellular IoT applications, they produce WAN IoT ICs that operate under Cat 1 and Cat 1 Biz connectivity protocols, which are popular in China and have helped fuel the recent upswing in the cellular IoT module market. There's been several large investment rounds for IoT hardware startups. Yep, so they talk about the chip shortage. I don't know if I'm going to go through all this piece. Let's go into the manufacturing piece, which we care about. All right, so manufacturing receives the most attention from IoT startups, but smart city and energy utility-focused startups gain traction. Over a quarter of startups focus on the manufacturing industry, but focus on cities and utilities is rising. Recently, there's been a shift in the focus of newly founded IoT startups from the manufacturing industry to sectors like smart cities and energy and utilities. And while the overall share of active IoT startups targeting the manufacturing industry remains approximately 36%, still the highest, recent years show a declining trend. In 2023, only 28% of newly founded IoT startups targeted the manufacturing sector, down from 33% in 2021 and a peak of 40% in 2017. My guess is that's definitely not accurate. So I would definitely challenge the analysts to come here. That doesn't mean the conclusion is that recent years show a declining trend. So while manufacturing has the highest, recent years show a declining trend. Okay, so in 2023, last year, 28% of newly founded IoT startups targeted the manufacturing sector, down from 33% in 2021 and a peak of 40% in 2017. The problem with that analysis is that they found new companies. And so the reality is that what we've seen is that startups are holding steady in manufacturing. And moreover, what we're really seeing is that IoT startups are focusing on a broad market. The investors are looking for multiple revenue streams, not just one sector. Okay. For example, HiByte, for example, you're going to end up seeing HiByte have a much larger play in the financial industry long term than you will in manufacturing. Meanwhile, the shares of IoT startups focusing on other sectors are increasing. For instance, the overall shares for active IoT startups targeting smart cities and energy utilities are approximately 10% each. I actually haven't heard. I don't hear the smart city thing exploding. Here's where I see smart cities coming into play, and this is through our experience. It is in water, wastewater facilities within a municipality first innovating. So you can tell where the mindset of a municipality is, that is their investment in smart technology, by just visiting their water, wastewater facility. If you see state-of-the-art water, wastewater technology, so that is they're not running Wonderware InTouch still, which is still the predominant SCADA platform for water, wastewater. If they talk about operational execution platforms as opposed to supervisor control and data acquisition platforms, if they're talking about operational execution, then they are on the path to investing in smart technology. That's when we look at municipalities, we're looking primarily at three things. Number one, have they invested in state-of-the-art smart technology in water, wastewater? Okay, so that is, are they trying to connect their water, wastewater facilities together over the wide area network, monitor and control them, and analyze them remotely? That is, are they doing things like machine learning to predict the negative impacts on a wastewater facility based on predicted weather that we might see over the next month? And for example, Farmers Branch, the city that I live in North Texas, actually does this type of thing so that they can make adjustments to our wastewater facilities when we expect an inordinate amount of rain coming in. Rather than going from experiential knowledge, they're leveraging data analytics to make the adjustments to their operations so that what we don't end up seeing is some type of environmental event after a flood, all right? But you can tell where cities are going, municipalities are going, by just looking at their water, wastewater facilities first. The second big one is, are they using bleeding edge backup power? So if it is the municipality investing in battery technology? We see this in the Tornado Alley all the time. You know, are you a city in Tornado Alley in the middle of the United States who is investing in technology to bring population centers back online using battery technology in the short term while power lines are being repaired? Are you doing that kind of stuff? That's the second thing that we're seeing. And then the third thing that we're seeing is really like in their 911 centers. Are they using artificial intelligence and generative AI to analyze calls that are coming into their 911 centers? That's the kind of stuff we're seeing in smart cities. It's a lot less about like traffic planning. I think long term, most of the traffic stuff is going to come from data from electric vehicles like Teslas. That's one of Tesla's revenue streams. They're going to be selling data to municipalities. They're currently already doing this. And so that municipalities don't have to spend a shit ton of money on traffic studies, they can just go back to, if say I want to do a traffic study on a specific intersection, all they got to do is go to Tesla and say, hey, what we'd like to do is use your data to do the traffic study retroactively instead of going and putting sensors on there and cameras and all that kind of bullshit. But on the smart city side, I'm not seeing growth in smart cities. I'm seeing that hold steady, but it's going slow, and a lot of it is the concern that there's a concern around digital in municipalities around security because digital fluency is so low. Like the biggest concern that you'll hear in a water wastewater facility is, you know, bad actors, Russians wanting to take us down, poison our water, that kind of stuff. Okay. All right, AI is taking a foothold. Over 5% of IoT startups worldwide are focused on AI-based solutions. I actually think it's probably higher than that. I'd love to hear Balada's take on that because I know he's seeing a lot of the AI stuff too, which is why he's so driving him crazy so much, and he says he's the anti-AI guy. Actually, let's talk about AI for just a second. We'll kind of bury it in this video, and if you stuck with me this far, I saw a really good short the other day of a guy who was saying artificial intelligence is neither artificial nor intelligent. If it was artificial, then it couldn't be intelligent. If it was intelligent, it couldn't be artificial. And it has to do with the complex way that we think, right? Human beings think. What he was saying is that artificial intelligence is just fast. And the best way to describe AI to people is artificial intelligence is computers being able to Google really quickly. And so that the output from artificial intelligence is limited to the quality of what it can find in search results. Now, obviously, it's not actively searching when the model's already been trained on those results. But a really good metaphor is that AI is just looking things up very, very quickly. And think about all the times that you find things online that are inaccurate, or the topic is more nuanced than what can be found in a paper. I think the challenge that most people are seeing with artificial intelligence and the adoption of artificial intelligence is how to use it. And, I preach this all the time. ML and AI is sprinting. And you have to crawl before you can stand. You got to stand before you can stumble. You got to stumble before you can walk. You got to walk before you can jog. You got to jog before you can sprint. Most organizations are trying to go from crawling to sprinting without any of the intermediary steps, and then they're wondering why they're such shitty sprinters, right? Most organizations are focused on the wrong thing. They can look at that long-term goal. We want to monitor the present because we've learned from the past so that we can predict the future, right? To get better outcomes. We want to modify our schedule in real time, all that kind of stuff. Streamline supply chain, logistics, the whole deal. But most organizations just don't know where they are. Like, they literally don't know where they stand. And so they don't even know where in the process they're starting. And so many organizations are misleading them. They're capitalizing on the organization's ignorance. There's a really great comment in this post right here. It's literally the first one. This guy, Ryan Cahalane, he said, "No wonder customers are confused about where to start and end up doing nothing, or randomly doing a bunch without real impact. Take a breath, get a trusted Sherpa, okay, as an advisor. They may exist already inside your company, else hire someone with perspective and build a basic roadmap without trying to get perfect, and confidently enjoy the journey." That is how digital transformation is successful, okay? And there's Nude right here. This is the guy that I spoke to. He said, "For clarification, for this analysis, our team defined a startup as a company that is no older than 8 years. In case you're searching for a specific company and cannot find it, this might be the reason." Let's take a look, though. Let me actually take a look at, and let's see if I can see who's on here. Let's zoom in here. Let's take a look at IoT software. So this is IoT software, data and analytics. So let's see if we can find, let's see if good old ChatGPT is HiByte in this image. I do this kind of stuff all the time. And it might be too small for it to read, but let's see. It's located in IoT software section under data and analytics. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look. So it says HiByte's in here somewhere. See if we can't find HiByte. I do recognize a lot of these names. I know a bunch of these. I mean, I'm not going to make a, well, maybe you guys see it. I don't see it. All right, I'm not going to worry about it. Let's see who else is in here under their platforms. I guarantee they don't got that right, because there aren't that many IoT platforms in the world, let alone. All right, I want to talk about the green sector real quick. We're having this conversation. We've worked with two different EV companies that have gone bankrupt in the last year. Okay, Both of them are similar battery technology. We were on the battery technology side. In both cases, they went bankrupt primarily for mismanagement. It wasn't like they had the wrong technology. They were able to sell their technology. The fundamental issue was the people making the decisions in both companies were a long ways away from the operations. And so things just moved really slow. You know, how we knew that we were really, you know, we were game changers for their organizations was, you know, one company went bankrupt and some engineers went to this other company and they brought us with them. Number two, in both cases, the companies prioritized paying our company to keep us continuing to do the work. But one of the observations I made about green is, you know, everyone keeps talking about this investment in renewable energy, which we need to be doing. But I don't think most people in the market understand just how much people are failing in green energy. I mean, they're failing a lot. And if I'm being cynical, which I'm not cynical about this, but I'm going to take the cynical approach first, and I'll tell you what I think is actually really happening. The cynical view would be you have venture capitalists who are investing in green technology. They're outlaying $50 million, and they're getting public dollars that's matching their investment. So immediately, their $50 million is turning into $100 million, okay? And what they're doing is they are manipulating, it is manipulating their decisions. They are making decisions where they can pull the cord and they can leave with money in their pocket, even in spite of the fact that the venture failed. And that's the cynical view. The cynical view is that the massive public investment in this technology is not incentivizing companies to succeed in the market. It is incentivizing them to protect the money that they got from the government, protect that money because that's the money they're going to fall back on if things fail, right? All right, that's the cynical view. I don't necessarily think that's what's going on, but I am hearing a lot of that from people after these failed investments or these failed initiatives. What I think is actually going on is most people who are working in green energy don't know manufacturing. There's a lot of people just coming right out of school. I cannot stress this enough. If you're an engineer and you want to get into consulting, you want to do machine learning, your first stop should be to work in a manufacturing facility. You know, we have right now my middle son, Jared, he's one of the engineers at Intellic Integration. And he is technically a junior. He's about to become engineer grade. He's an excellent developer. He's been developing for years, but he's only been an engineer with Intellic. He joined Intellic this year. I made a point to, I wanted him to start at the absolute, you know, he had to earn his keep. So he was an executive assistant first. Then he moved into digital media and he learned how to film and edit and manage digital media. And then he expressed an interest in going into engineering. He went and interviewed with the engineering, the chief operating officer, and they hired him away from 4.0 Solutions. And, you know, he's been doing a phenomenal job. But Jared doesn't have any experience on the plant floor. He hasn't worked in a manufacturing facility. And so one of the things that I've told them is, hey, you need to get him manufacturing experience. And so now he is working for a local manufacturer 1 or 2 days a week on the plant floor, working under operations, under engineering, learning their entire business all the way through and dealing with the issues that manufacturers deal with every single day. And if we ever hire an engineer who doesn't have that type of experience, our first primary goal is to get them into an actual operation, not isolate them in consulting, but get them on the plant floor assisting operations on a daily basis. One of the biggest challenges in the green space that we're seeing is that the number of people involved in trying to get these initiatives off the ground have no manufacturing experience. manufacturing is really, really hard. It's not easy. It's very, very hard to build processes from scratch, try to make them state of the art, have them meet a specific cycle time, compete in a market. I mean, if you think about green energy, it's not a new market. Solar, battery technology, they're trying to compete with entrenched processes, and without subsidies, they wouldn't be making these investments at all because the market isn't ready yet. Fossil fuels are still way less expensive. And if you make them more expensive artificially through carbon taxes and stuff, you end up seeing what you see in the northeastern United States right now. Nobody's starting companies in New York State. Everybody's moving away. All the smart young people are leaving. The only people who are staying are the ones who work for the government, and that has to be paid for by tax dollars. So then the people who stay have to pay higher taxes. Then they don't want to vote for higher taxes. So then what do? The local governments find other ways to tax you without passing a tax. They will write more parking tickets. They will be much more stringent about speeding and stop signs and expired registrations and light bulbs out on your car. And no matter what, you're paying for it. It's going to happen. They'll start charging you for parking in a place where they didn't charge you for parking. They'll start making you buy passes to go to the park. And that's what's happening in these regions where, in the name of combating climate change, they're expecting their residents to pay for combating climate change. And then the startups who are trying to compete in the market are just getting fucking slaughtered. I mean, they're getting slaughtered. The reason Tesla is a successful company is because they make the best cars. Like, I owned a Model S, I owned a Model 3, and then a Model S. I just traded my Model S in for a brand new pickup truck because I bought a ranch in East Texas, and I can't get a Cybertruck for 2 years. We went back and did the calculations. Zero maintenance whatsoever. I literally changed the tires one time. No maintenance on my Tesla at all. No oil changes, no anything. No check engine lights came on. I got 120, 130 new features over the course of 36 or 37 software updates. It was just a superior vehicle. It's just a superior vehicle. There's no way around it. It just is. Tesla's successful because they're the best in the market. It's not because they're green. And then if you want to make the argument that they're not green because of lithium, whatever, I did the math, you're basically carbon neutral at 60,000 miles. So they are green, but they're not successful because they're green. They're successful because they made a superior product. And what's happening in the market is people just aren't making the superior products. And that's a huge problem. And I would really like to see, I'd like to see two things happen as it comes to these analytics, okay? These companies that do these market analysis. I think most of them do a really poor job. I'm making no judgment here. I'm not going to pay for this report. If Nude from IoT Analytics wants me to read the whole report and do an analysis on it, I will. I don't think that this is an especially bad report. I think some of their conclusions I don't agree with, but I think of the 7 conclusions, 5 of those they pass muster, okay? I have not looked at that list to see if they've got companies, under software, they're not software. I have not. I'll bet after how badly they got blasted for their IoT report last year, I mean, they had companies in areas in their quadrants that didn't even have product. Like Microsoft was literally, they had Microsoft listed in areas that didn't even have products. You know what I mean? So I suspect that they probably cross their T's and dot their I's there. So I would love to read the whole report. But I would say this, to those of you who want to know, hey, should I pay attention to this kind of stuff? The answer is, I think you should read it. But should you draw conclusions or make decisions from reports like this? Absolutely not. Why would you make a decision or draw a conclusion from a report written by an analyst who has been doing analytics since April. It looks like she was an intern since last October, and all that's great. I mean, she's probably really gifted. And it looks like her whole business has been in, her whole career has been in that arena. But the reality has been in doing market analysis. But the reality is my experience has been, you want to know who those market analysts call? They call me. They call Rick Bellata. I just got another one. Here's an example of the kind of, this is when I get there's a company I do market, I advise on the market. I do market analysis for them. So they will call me and I will consult on M&A and that kind of stuff. Here is an example of the kind of the inquiry that they make if they're looking for you to help them. So I got a company reached out to me the other day. He said, "Hey Walker, I hope this email finds you well. My name is so-and-so. I'm an associate with this organization that does research. I'm reaching out to you because we're working with a client who's researching MQTT and is hoping to speak to customers of vendors in the space. And vendors are HiveMQ, Mosquito, EMQX, Vern. Given your background, my client and I both believe that you could add some value here." Okay? I get that kind of stuff all the time. And so what'll happen is I will get on a call with their client and their client's going to ask me questions, me directly. They know my background. I don't know if they know my name. I can't remember if they have me give my name. I've done maybe 100 of these calls now. But they know what my background is, and then the customer will just ask me questions and then I answer. It'll be like, "Hey, what do you know about MQTT? Why is it important? What do you see the play is in the market?" That kind of stuff. That's what these things are. My guess, I would love to see if the girl who wrote this report for IoT Analytics, if she does that kind of thing, what they really should be doing is providing the resources that they reached out to in order to get those answers, because she doesn't know anything about IoT. I mean, nobody. Think about this. It's even worse today. When I graduated from college in 1998, okay, so I took longer to do my undergraduate work because I was a dual major. When I got my first set of degrees, I graduated in 1998, so I was 24 years old. By that time, I had 10 years of working experience. So when I was 24, I had been working for 10 years. Actually, 11 years. I started with mowing lawns, working on a farm, working in a grocery store, working in fast food, working in an arcade. Then I worked in retail. Then I worked for a traveling arcade company fixing video games. Like I was working for a decade. And I was not the exception. I was the rule in my generation. Today, when people come out of school, come out of college, they have no work experience. Like when I mean no work experience, they never had a job in high school. They didn't work at all in college. The only experience they have is an internship. And guess what interns do when they intern? They carry a fucking clipboard. I believe me, you know how I know? Because at every stop of the way, I had interns. I had co-ops working for me, and we had a co-op director who I would report to. They would basically hand me these co-ops. They'd give me the list of all the things they're not allowed to do, and they were essentially limited to carrying a clipboard and taking measurements and doing a report at the end of the summer. That's how it worked. They didn't learn the business. In fact, they would all complain when we were shooting shit that they weren't doing anything. They were bored. If you want to see how interns are treated, watch The Office, the episode where the summer interns are leaving. That is what internships are. It's not real work. Is there some cases of real work? Yes, but the rule is it's not real work. And so now if you're a girl who just came out of college and you're writing a report on IoT startups, she should be working with a senior analyst who's writing that report. And that senior analyst and her should be working with subject matter experts in the field. That being said, I don't want to be overly harsh, because for what IoT Analytics does, this isn't the worst thing that they've produced. And 5 of the 7 conclusions pass muster. Okay. That being said, I think you should read the summary. I don't know if I'd necessarily pay for the report. I think it's like $2,000. If Nude wants me to, provide the report to me and have me review it and then give my unvarnished opinion, I'm happy to do that. All right. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment down below, and I'll see you in the next one.